So this video is going to be a little bit different from the normal videos that I upload. I have done a similar video where I shared the entirety of the Blu-rays and DVDs that I own, but this time I'm going to be sharing the Avenged Sevenfold CDs that I have since I have acquired every single one of the albums they've ever released on CD, which starts with Sounding the Seventh Trumpet and ends in the most recent one, Life is But a Dream. And it has taken me a long time to actually acquire every single one of these CDs. One of them I had to burn myself because there was never an official release for it. But regardless, it is still awesome that I finally have every single one of them, and I'm super happy that I do. And I'm going to share the information that I know about each one of these CDs, but I'm not going to go into the detail that I normally do with the cases and all of that. I'm just going to talk about the actual band themselves. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one, which is Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. So, Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, the first CD that Avenged Sevenfold have ever released. And it's got a pretty cool cover art to it, too. So, this kind of gives me like Roman statue vibes with the mother in the background here with her angel wings. Then you have the two kids in front, the little girl and the little boy. Those two statues kind of give me Barmalay Fountains vibes, if anyone knows what that is. It shouldn't give me those vibes, but it just kind of makes me think of that. But either way, the cover is really, really cool, and I love the purple hue to it and the flowers as well. And if you ever played the Fortnite map, the museum that they made, the flowers are definitely prominent in that. As far as the songs go, I mean, there's some really good songs in here, To End the Rapture, The Act of Subconscious Illusion, and of course, Warmness on the Soul. And there's a fun fact with this one about Streets, which I'll get into in just a moment here. A lot of these songs are screaming, which you might expect from a band giving things a try for the first time, but overall, lots of great music in here. Now, the fun facts are actually written into the paperwork itself. So you can read right here that Streets was actually written by M. Shadows for a successful failure, something that he had done before Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. So that's a cool little tidbit of information. But also, the Art of Subconscious Illusion having additional screams, that was done by Valerie Di Benedetto. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her last name, probably butchered it, but if you don't know who she is the wife of M. Shadows. So that's a really cool little tidbit of information. And then, of course, they added Sinister Gates appearing on To End the Rapture because at this point, he wasn't actually officially in Avenged Sevenfold yet. So their next album was Waking the Fallen, and this one took them a few years to make, but it was really well done, and it got met with a lot of positive reviews when it came out. This is also the first full album that Sinister Gates had worked on, so he got full credit for this album, which is really cool. Now here's the track list for it, and obviously everyone knows Unholy Confessions, everyone that's an Avenged fan at least. Unholy Confessions is just great. Chapter 4, in my opinion, is also really good, and I also really like Radiant Eclipse. Now, a lot of people will talk to you about I Won't See You Tonight, parts 1 and 2, because that's more of a melody type of song, but they're really good. They get combined, basically, and kind of create this one piece of art, if that makes sense. Really good. And then there's Clairvoyant Disease, which I also think is pretty solid. But a fun fact about this one is that this was originally going to be worked on by Damon Ash as the bassist, but that's when actually Johnny Christ came in and, filled in the spot when Damon Ash was absent during band practices and stuff like that. Eventually, they just said, screw it, Johnny, it's all yours. And Johnny basically came in and completely replaced Damon Ash on bass, which I think is really cool because he's really good at what he does. But they also re-released Waking the Fallen and called it Waking the Fallen Resurrected, which has some unique cover art, and it's really cool. I believe this one was released in 2014. Now, yes, it has the same tracks as the original album, but this one includes some demos from some of the songs, which not all bands do this type of thing, so I think this is really cool of them. And then this one also has the Resurrected DVD, which is like a documentary and some other stuff like the music videos. I like that. I like when bands do that. They include the music videos. And fun fact about one of the music videos, if you know it, you know it, is that they tried to film it one time and then they said, nah, we're going to redo this in front of the live performance. And they used a lot like the audience as part of the music video. If you know about that, you know about that. And then following the Waking the Fallen album, we have City of Evil. an album that many Avenged Sevenfold fans like. I enjoy a lot of the songs on this. It's not my favorite album they've ever released, but it's still great nonetheless. And let's be honest, this cover art goes pretty damn hardcore. It is awesome. Like the City of Evil in the background, the skeleton riding itself into the camera here. I think it's just pretty awesome, especially with that long sword. That's just badass all around. And of course, City of Evil has one of the more well-known songs from Avenged, Bat Country. Beast in the Harlot and Bat Country are two songs that non-Avenged Sevenfold fans would even know about. If you asked a non-Avenged fan to list some songs from Avenged, they would guaranteed say Bat Country. That's just one of the songs. But the rest of the songs on this album are really solid. My personal favorite would probably be Seize the Day. It's not the same upbeat tone that the rest of these have and stuff like that, but I like the message that it has, and it's, it's really obviously a sad song, but I think it's still really well done. And a fun fact about this, not so much a fun fact, but interesting fact about this album, the song Betrayed is written about Dimebag Darrell. If you don't know who he was a guitarist for Pantera, who unfortunately passed away. So Betrayed is about him and the perspectives and stuff like that, about his murder. So really unfortunate fact, but it's a fun fact, I guess, nonetheless. Then, once you've departed from the City of Evil, you make your way up into the afterlife and find yourself in the self-titled album or the White Album, which is probably a top 3 album for me. I absolutely love this album, and it has one of my favorite songs they've ever written, if not my favorite. So right away, I'm just going to point to it, A Little Piece of Heaven. That is my favorite song on this album, and it may just be my favorite song they've ever written. There's a few that challenge that, such as The Stage, for example, but honestly, A Little Piece of Heaven is just that good. This album also contains some amazing songs like Afterlife, Scream, Brompton Cocktail, and Dear God, but pretty much every song on this album is insanely good. Now, 2 fun facts about this album. The first one, critical acclaim, when they performed this at the LBC, M. Shadows did his infamous Hellman Scream, I believe that's what it's called, for the start of critical acclaim. And if you've never seen that performance, it is absolutely worth watching. That scream is something else, man. But the more interesting fun fact is the creation of A Little Piece of Heaven. This song was written by Jimmy, and it came to him, the idea for the song came to him in a dream. So he just kind of went on his own, went to town, and created the song and presented it to the band, and they were like, oh my god, this is awesome. Originally, it was intended to be for a Halloween episode or whatnot, but I guess the label or whoever was like, yeah, no, this needs to be on the main thing. And I'm super glad they put it on this because it's just such an insanely good song. But it is a bit of a dark and twisted story, and if you know the story, you know why I'm saying that. It's just awesome all around, and it shows the creativity of Jimmy, and I love it. Then, once we have finished with the self-titled album, we'll take the plunge and head all the way down to the Diamonds in the Rough album. And this one has some very, very good songs to it. Songs that almost didn't get released. Basically, Diamonds in the Rough is songs that didn't make it onto other albums, and they just said, you know what, these are still good, let's release them. This one also contains the live in the LBC performance that I just mentioned in the previous CD, but let's go ahead and flip this one over. When it comes to this album, I absolutely love The Fight. It's definitely an amazing song. If you haven't heard it, because the Diamonds in the Rough isn't the most well-known Avenged album, highly recommend listening to it. But yeah, The Fight is just that good in my opinion. And then you have other great songs like Tension, Flash of the Blade, Crossroads. And then you also have songs that were kind of remixed, like Almost Easy, which is the Chris Lord Algae remix, and then Afterlife, the alternate version of that song, which is really cool to listen to. The fun fact about this album, like I said already, is the fact that it's basically songs that almost didn't make the cut for where they were originally supposed to be. So it's kind of awesome that we get to listen to songs that almost never made it to see the light of day. Additionally, this specific CD has the live in the LBC DVD performance. So you get to watch the absolute greatness that is Avenged Sevenfold live in the LBC with M. Shadows, infamous critical acclaim Hellman scream, which I absolutely love. Unfortunately, the sticker here cuts off the other songs, but Beast in the Highlight for 4, 9 is Almost Easy, and then 12 is A Little Piece of Heaven. Just an absolutely awesome performance. Highly recommend watching it if you haven't already. And then if we dig a little bit deeper than Diamonds in the Rough, we will find ourselves at the Nightmare album, which, in my opinion, is probably the greatest cover art they've done for any of their albums. Just look how awesome this is. And it even has the Revs tribute right there. There is a sad fact about this album, and that will be what I mention in a moment here, but just look at this great cover art. It is just a masterpiece, in my opinion. It's just so well done. Now, this album happens to have one of my favorite songs, like my top 3 songs, the ones that compete against A Little Piece of Heaven for my all-time favorite, and this one would be Save Me. It's basically 11 minutes of pure greatness, and if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. But this album basically goes from super upbeat and really just the hardcore rock that you're probably used to from Avenged, and then it kind of dwindles itself down into a more serious tone, and it becomes very sad. The interesting fact about this, and I wouldn't even say interesting, but I don't really have another word to use, but Fiction is the last song that Jimmy ever wrote for the band. He turned in his version of Fiction, and he said, "Here you go." 3 days later, he ended up being found dead. So, yeah, Fiction was his last creation. But this album has some amazing songs like Nightmare, which Nightmare is one of those that even non-Avenged Sevenfold fans have heard or know about. And then it has my other favorite song on this album, Welcome to the Family. Save Me is my absolute first, and then, Welcome to the Family next, because it's just so well done. But overall, fantastic album. Especially with songs like Victim, Fiction, So Far Away. If you haven't heard So Far Away, it's really touching. And then Buried Alive and Natural Born Killer. But yeah, they're all great. Just those are some of my favorites. So after Nightmare, they obviously needed to find a new drummer to fill in, to try to fill in, I should say, the spot of Jimmy. And so they had a guy named Aaron come into play here. So Aaron joined Avenged for Hail to the King album. And honestly, a lot of these songs are really good. Obviously, Shepherd of Fire and Hail to the King are the most known songs. Hail to the King, M. Shadows himself said that if he's introducing someone to their band, he will share with them Hail to the King, because that's just the most approachable. And then if they like that, obviously they can go deeper. But this album has some really good songs, and you can see the band members right here with the new guy Aaron right there. But you can see all of them just chilling. Personally, I love This Means War. I think that is basically an anthem. Like, if you listen to it, it's basically like you're getting ready to lead yourself and your team into battle. It's just that kind of song that brings that high level of energy that I absolutely love. And then another song that I absolutely love from this album is Requiem. This song actually starts in Latin, which I think makes it that much more interesting. And if you listen to the lyrics, you'll probably understand why they started Requiem with Latin. But that song just feels so right. And then, of course, you have, a more ballad style song like Acid Rain over there. Very, very good song if you haven't listened to that. But overall, fantastic album. And then right after you listen to Hail to the King album, the easy-ish listening, you get an album that really makes you think about a lot. It makes you think about existence and just the universe in general. It is not meant to be an album that you kind of just listen to in the background. It's one of those that you listen to from start to finish, and it contains one of the 2 songs that, in my opinion, competes with A Little Piece of Heaven. The other one being Save Me from the Nightmare album, and the other one is The Stage, the song that starts the entire album. And it really is an album that makes you think about a lot of things. It's one of those albums that you put on, lay down, and just put your headphones on and listen to it and just kind of think about various things. It's meant to make you question and wonder existence and things like that. I mean, you could kind of judge that by the names of the songs, but a fun fact about this album is Neil deGrasse Tyson is actually featured in one of the songs, which is really cool. But this album really does make you think. And then another fun fact is that When Avenged Sevenfold made the museum map in Fortnite for Unreal Engine Fortnite, you actually have a boss fight in that map, and it features this astronaut from the stage. So it's a really cool way to finish that whole map off is by going off against the astronaut itself. And then after taking that extreme journey of the stage, you can take a peaceful ride with Life is But a Dream, which, if I'm being honest, I am not a fan of this style of case, but, I'm not going to bother with that right now. The artwork itself is pretty cool, and this is their most recent album, and it is really good to listen to. Now, my personal favorite on this is actually Mattel. I love that one. It's a really good song. I think it's extremely energetic and upbeat, and I think it's funny that it directly references the Barbie stuff, like the whole Barbie universe, but also it kind of uses the same line that Truman uses in the Truman Show movie. So I think that's a really cool little touch as well, little nod to that movie. I just love the song. I think it's really good. But of course, everyone loves Cosmic. That is the most popular song from this entire album. It's an absolutely beautiful ballad. And if Mattel wasn't my favorite, I would definitely say Cosmic. Something interesting that I've come to learn about this specific album, though, is most people talk about the first half of the album, from Game Over to Cosmic, and typically ignore Beautiful Morning to Life is But a Dream. But these songs are actually really good. They're just what's the word? Underappreciated, I guess. Because, Mattel is great, Game Over, Nobody, both great. We Love You is solid. Beautiful Morning, Easier, and G are all really good as well, but they just, like I said, get underappreciated. But this is their most recent album, and I saw them perform this twice live, so yeah, absolutely fantastic album. And then, as a bonus, I have the Avenged Sevenfold Black Rain album. This was a custom CD burn that I did because they never actually released this CD or this album on CD. The only thing it was ever released as was a vinyl, as far as I'm aware. I had to custom burn this myself with, a custom case, not custom case, but just blank case and blank CDs that I found on Amazon. And the Black Rain album only has 4 songs on it that were featured in Call of Duty Black Ops 4. You got Mad Hatter, Carry On, and Not Ready to Die, as well as the Jade Helm instrumental, which is about 51 seconds long, so very short. But it was all made for Call of Duty Black Ops 4. But this is the little extra. Like I said, it was never actually put on CD officially, so burned this myself. So finally, since I showed them all at the start, all laid out, thought I would share them all on the CD rack itself, because I put them in order. I know it's not focusing too well, but yeah, all of the albums are right there, and then Black Rain's at the top, and at the bottom here is where I have the paper one for Life is But a Dream, because it simply does not fit in this rack. But I'm trying to get the angle where it doesn't. There we go. But yeah, every single one of the albums. Eventually, I may additionally burn all of the demos they've ever made and released, because the band themselves have released the demos for various songs. So at some point, I just might burn those to a CD as well. But this is my entire Avenged Sevenfold collection, and I am extremely proud of it because it is just my favorite music to listen to. I absolutely love Avenged Sevenfold.